Salam and peace to all. I would like to share with you the story of my family that are indigenous to the land of Palestine, in Arabic, Palestine. My family lived in the region of Palestine for thousands of years between the river of Jordan and the Sea of Haifa. My immediate family is from northern Palestine, also known as Galilee, in Arabic, Al-Jalil. My parents were born in Al-Jalil in the city of Safad, close to the river of Jordan, and the city of Haifa on the Mediterranean Sea, a region full of religious and historic significance that our indigenous families were part of for thousands of years, including the place of birth of Mother Mary, peace be upon her.
يا بر الشام يا ريت عز أصبع الجليل الأعلى الغربي فيك دام. جيبي شقف الحرير والمخمل معاكي من سوريا وناولهم يسوق الخميس من خير الخوخ والبرقوق كوام. ونادي خيل الأصايل من لبنان خبرهم في عرس بصفد والحداية والشعار أسبوع ما رح تنام. شهلوا يا ستات الجبل وملوا من العين لنكرمهم والخيل قبلهم واجبه ينقام. عالبال يما عالبال يخلص ليل صفد الأسود والوطن يضرب موال.
عناق الشمس وهدي التائه في الفلوات علمها الكرم رفع الرأس ونعلى الرايات وعناق الشمس وهدي التائه في الفلوات.
The region of Palestine was among the earliest to see human habitation, agricultural communities, and civilization, and went through many waves of religious change, the last of which were Judaism, Christianity, and finally Islam.
This film looks at the region in the 20th century from a different perspective. Here, historians and personal testimony by contemporary witnesses argue that, far from being an empty wilderness, Palestine was a vibrant Arab country with a developing commercial and community infrastructure. Greater Syria was a major region of the Middle East at the turn of the 20th century. It became part of the Ottoman Empire in 1516 and remained Ottoman until the end of the First World War in 1918. Greater Syria's southern province, Palestine, was an active part of the Ottoman world. Trade boomed in its commercial centers, which included Jerusalem, Jaffa, and Haifa. Jerusalem was becoming an important commercial center, as were the ports of Gaza and Jaffa. They combined to turn Palestine into a trading hub with Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. These old trading records in the Jerusalem archives are evidence of its business activity. Jerusalem exported soap to Egypt, Italy, and Greece through Gaza, grain to Egypt, Rhodes, and Dubrovnik through Jaffa, cotton to France and Izmir, and antiques and religious gifts to Istanbul, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Gaza and Jaffa also imported rice and fabrics from Egypt, textiles from Istanbul, glassware from China, shawls from India, and lead from France and the Netherlands in Europe. Through trade, Palestinian cities kept pace with development in the rest of the world in the late 19th century. Palestine also developed a transport infrastructure and built a railway network to connect Jerusalem and other towns and cities with the ports on the Mediterranean. The opening of Jerusalem's main train station was a landmark event in this part of the Ottoman world.
So my family lived in Palestine, between the river and the sea, where Arabs from different religious backgrounds, Muslims being the majority with Christians, Jews and others, all lived in peace before the Nakba or catastrophe of 1948. My parents, who were children at the time in 1948, had to flee for their lives from the Zionist Israeli forces that carried out more than 70 massacres and destroyed or repopulated with settlers more than 530 towns and villages in Palestine, killing in the process at least 15,000 and displacing more than 750,000 Palestinians. On the 29th of November 1947, the UN General Assembly, with colonial powers directions, passed Resolution 181-2, the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine, which was outright rejected by the Palestinians and the 5 members of the Arab League who were voting members at the time at the UN. The partition plan was gross injustice, as at the time Arabs owned about 90% of the land, while Jews only owned about 7% of the land. Both the Balfour Declaration and the British Mandate for Palestine referred to a 90% Arab population, majority Muslim, as existing non-Jewish communities. The UN Partition Plan, which by the way did not call for the displacement of existing Arab population, allocated to Israel about 55% of the land, and Palestine was allocated the remaining 45% of the land. Jerusalem and Bethlehem were to be an internationally governed separate entity. Palestinians and Arabs also indicated an unwillingness to accept any form of territorial division, arguing that it violated the principles of national self-determination in the UN Charter, which granted people the right to decide their own destiny. Subsequently, war broke out in Palestine, and the plan was actually never implemented, and Israel was established on the lands taken or stolen from the Palestinians by force, massacres, and crimes against humanity. Members of our families that survived the Israeli massacres became refugees in Lebanon and then Syria, and lived their lives in the diaspora, moving from one place or country to another, looking for a safe place to live and better future for their children. No matter how many times that they had to move or how long it has been, now over 76 years, they and their children never lost their desire and hope to return to their homes. In my family's case, our homes still physically exist today, but are illegally occupied by illegal settlers who came from different distant parts of the world. Irrespective of their current belief, most of these settlers have no lineage connection to the indigenous peoples of the land of Palestine. To date, our families are still suffering from this injustice, including dozens of our extended family members, multi-generations of families from grandparents to grandchildren that were refugees in the Gaza Strip have been massacred by the Israeli army in the recent genocide that Israel carried in Gaza. Facing all of this, and to preserve the history of our homeland, Palestine, we developed hand-sketched maps of our cities with the location of where each family lived and major sites in the city. When settlers came, they took our families' homes with all the contents left behind, like furniture and personal belongings, including family memories. The occupiers and illegal settlers have been trying their best to erase any history of the Palestinian presence in the land and trying to drag and stall peace talks, thinking that the people will either forget or new Palestinian generations that have been born in the diaspora will lose their ties to their ancestral land and forget about their homes and lands. They also try hard to divide the Palestinians and ignite conflict between them. Recent developments in the conflict have proven the inseparable ties that the indigenous Palestinians have to their ancestral lands, and many around the world with human decency have come out in support of justice for the Palestinians. The repeated story of brutal and unwanted colonization has plagued our world and caused unimaginable suffering to the indigenous populations. The world will never be a better place until the ugly truth is totally uncovered and real, serious, and hard steps are taken to correct the wrongdoings of colonization around the world. Many of us from different parts of the world might have tragic family history and stories to tell about injustice done to them. The center of the world and heart of the lands holy to a big number of the human population is an important starting point to apply justice, equality, and human decency. At this point, and according to the United Nations, there are 5.9 million Palestinian refugees at more than 58 refugee camps in the surrounding countries. Today, the Palestinian population worldwide is estimated to be around 14.8 million. Beside the refugees and those living in the diaspora, this includes around 5.6 million Palestinians that live in the state of Palestine and 1.8 million Palestinians that live in the occupied 1948 territories. There are countless United Nations resolutions and human rights organizations' positions affirming our rights to our homeland, Palestine, and our right to return to it. The resistance, which is a human right for those whose lands, homes, and property are stolen and lives are threatened, will continue until the end of time. It will continue no matter how hard criminals try to hide their crimes and try to falsely incriminate their victims. UN resolutions reaffirm the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for their independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and liberation from colonial domination, apartheid, and foreign occupation by all available means, including armed struggle. No human is superior to another, as we are all absolutely insignificant in this massive universe. Only our humanity and compassion toward other beings around us and the planet that we live in defines who we really are. Occupation has to end, justice needs to be served, and human decency needs to prevail. Thank you for hearing the story of our family.